Welcome to RPTV Weekly News Show. My name is Fred Alvarado, and my co-hosts are Murphy Brown, Jessica Mvutu, and Jabin Haque. We present news that impacts on Regent Park and other surrounding communities located in the downtown east neighborhoods of Toronto.
In this episode, we present to you the following news for the week of November 2nd to November 8th. Toronto teachers shock students with blackface. Former Regent Park resident Ahmed Hussen becomes Minister of Housing and Diversity and Inclusion. Toronto Centre MP Marci Ien becomes Canada's new Minister of Women, Gender Equality and Youth. Ontario minimum wage will increase to $15 per hour in January. Ezras Market, a new family business in Moss Park. Report of the third session of the Regent Park second annual deep dive. Indigenous Report Pope Francis indicates willingness to visit Canada. And finally, events in Regent Park. A student at a Toronto high school said his whole class was shocked and confused after a teacher wore blackface during Halloween celebrations on Friday. The Toronto School Board, the TDSB, has since placed the teacher at Parkdale Collegiate Institute on home assignment. Otis Stang, a grade 9 student at Parkdale CI, witnessed what happened. The whole class was shocked and confused, Stang told Jason D'Souza on CBC Radio's Metro Morning. It made me feel uncomfortable, he said. Stang said students asked the teacher what his costume was, and the teacher became defensive and said it looked cool. After class had ended, Stang said students and teachers gathered at the auditorium for an assembly. No one approached him. No one confronted him about what he was doing, Stang said. And that's the part that's really so devastating, is that really the only action that took place was because the kids stood up and said something, said Stang's mother, Liz Ikiriko. The incident shows a massive misunderstanding of the impact of blackface and how it affects BIPOC students. How would you feel to have your teacher come in with blackface, then be asked to remove it and continue teaching you, she said. In a letter to parents and guardians, Principal Julie Ardell called the incident racist and dehumanizing. She said the teacher was told to wash his face, and the school has filed a report with the TDSB. The teacher will remain on home assignment pending the outcome of an investigation, the letter says. Caricatures of people's race and culture are not appropriate and are offensive and hurtful, Ardell wrote. While we have begun the work of addressing anti-Black racism and all forms of discrimination, it is clear that we must do more. Parent Sarah Latha said her son shared a photo that his friend took that shows the teacher in blackface in the classroom. One of the main reasons we pushed for our kid to go to Parkdale was because of the diversity, so that he would see himself reflected in the school, Latha said, noting that she is a parent of a child of color. To have something like this happen, it's shocking. We're trying to push the school and the TDSB to look at how and why this happened. Parkdale in the city's West End is one of Toronto's most multicultural neighborhoods. After speaking with other parents whose children attend Parkdale CI, Latha said change needs to happen on a wider scale. When you're trying to build inclusive, anti-racist environments that challenge white supremacy to create safe spaces for learners, it's not about the individual intent of a person, Latha said. She still has concerns, notably about previous instances of racism where students may or may not have come forward, or how a school or school board's culture permitted such an incident to happen in the first place. Kathy Gatlin, another parent, said she helped her friend Leela Sarangi draft a petition demanding more action from the TDSB. Gatlin's children are mixed race, she said, and she often thinks about their experiences and what they might face because of the color of their skin. It makes me think about all the times I witnessed racism with teachers against Black children. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to rock the boat, she said. I have to start speaking out. The petition, which had 619 signatures as of 9 a.m. on Monday, provides details of the incident as well as recommendations for the TDSB. While parents commend the principal for taking action and listening to students, they add that the current policy and protocols are not enough. The parents offer 5 recommendations to the TDSB to ensure safety in our classrooms. Those are a zero-tolerance policy for hate and racial discrimination, create a safe, supportive, and anonymous complaints mechanism that is supportive of students and grounded in principles of anti-oppression so as not to become a snitch line. Public reporting on complaints of discrimination and racism. Hiring practices that are transparent, equitable, and seek to diversify the workforce. Ongoing and frequent professional development in areas of anti-Black racism, anti-colonialism, anti-oppression, and building in accountability through regular and rigorous performance appraisals.
Former Regent Park resident Ahmed Hussen becomes Minister of Housing and Diversity and Inclusion. The Liberal Party of Canada has taken a significant step in recognizing and combating the Canadian housing crisis by creating a new cabinet role, that of the Minister of Housing. Former Regent Park resident Ahmed Hussen becomes Minister of Housing and Diversity and Inclusion after previously serving as a Minister of Families, Children, and Social Development, where he struck child care agreements with 7 provinces and 1 territory and rolled out a $1 billion rapid housing strategy to combat homelessness during COVID-19 that converted hotels and motels into housing units. After arriving as a Somali refugee, Hussen lived with his brother in a subsidized apartment in Regent Park, the neighborhood that gave him a seal for the task Justin Trudeau has assigned to him: make housing more affordable and make more affordable housing available.
I, Ahmed D. Hussen, do solemnly and sincerely promise and swear that I will truly and faithfully, and to the best of my skill and knowledge, execute the powers and trusts reposed in me as Minister of Housing and Diversity and Inclusion. So help me God.
Honored to continue serving Canadians in Cabinet as Minister of Housing and Diversity and Inclusion, said Minister Hussen on his Facebook page. With a dedicated Ministry for Housing, we will continue to make it easier for Canadians to find an affordable place to call home and ending chronic homelessness. Let's keep working. The work of building a diverse and inclusive Canada requires a whole-of-government approach. Let's be bolder, stronger, and steadfast in the fight to end hatred and racism. We have to do this together. In his third ministerial role, he is setting out to make a difference in Canada's housing crisis. The Liberal government says it will establish a $2.7 billion fund for nonprofit housing providers to acquire land and buildings so that they can build more affordable housing. He wants to expand the subsidized nonprofit or co-op housing supply for vulnerable people who need it. And he wants to help younger and first-time homebuyers get into the ownership market. Housing is a provincial responsibility. Even so, Hussen said he is confident that he can work out agreements with the provinces based on his experience in the last government as the Minister for Families, Children and Social Development. Hussen said that he will be looking at every option, including a new tax-free home savings plan that would allow Canadians younger than 40 to save up to $40,000 for a first home and withdraw it tax-free with no repayment required.
Toronto Centre MP Marci Ien is Canada's new Minister of Women, Gender Equality and Youth, and the first African-Canadian woman to sit in cabinet in nearly 20 years.
I, Marci Ien, do solemnly and sincerely promise and swear that I will truly and faithfully and to the best of my skill and knowledge execute the powers and trusts reposed in me as Minister for Women and Gender, Equality and Youth, so help me God.
Former broadcaster and Toronto MP Marci Ien, representing Regent Park, Moss Park, and St. Jamestown, will be responsible for the Federal Department of Women and Gender Equality Canada under the Trudeau cabinet. Marci Ien, who was born in St. Jamestown and raised in Toronto, takes over the relatively new department at a crucial time and in the face of enormous uncertainty and extraordinary challenges to tackle the entrenched disparities that undermine the health and well-being of marginalized women and communities, and also to implement the calls for justice from the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls under the direction of Indigenous women, and a comprehensive and appropriately resourced national action plan to prevent and combat all forms of violence against women. The purpose of the department is to advance equity with respect to sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity or expression through the inclusion of people of all genders, including women, in Canada's economic, social, and political life, as well as the intersection of these with other identities such as ethnicity, age, socio-economic level, disability, and others. One of the most important things that the Department of Women and Gender Equality does is provide funding for organizations that empower women's rights in Canada. The department provides funding through the Women's Program, whose 3 priority areas lie in ending violence against women and girls, improving women's and girls' economic security and prosperity, and encouraging women and girls in leadership and decision-making roles.
Ontario minimum wage will increase to $15 per hour in January. The Ontario government has announced that it will increase the provincial minimum wage to $15 per hour next year.
I've always said workers deserve to have more money in their pockets because they earned it. They've worked hard and put in long hours. The least the government can do is ensure we're making life more affordable for them by putting real dollars in their pocket. That's why I'm so proud to stand here with Minister McNaughton and Minister Bethenfalvey and PA Deepak Anand, side by side with our great labor partners, to announce that our government will raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour effective January 1st, 2022.
Ford said that the pay bump would result in more than 760,000 workers across Ontario receiving a raise in the new year. The bump will also apply to liquor servers in the province, who currently make $12.50 per hour. NDP leader Andrea Horwath slammed the announcement, saying that the increase should be closer to $17 to $17.50.
Apparently, the Premier has admitted that his low-wage policies don't even fly with him. He admitted he couldn't live on $15 an hour, yet he expects literally hundreds of thousands of Ontario workers to do just that. His low-wage policy took $5,300 out of those very workers' pockets, Speaker, for 3 years. For 3 years, this Premier kept that low-wage policy in place. The low-wage policies of this government are absolutely hurting people. Everything is going up, Speaker. The cost of housing is up, the cost of electricity is up, the cost of gas is up, the cost of food is up, the cost of insurance is up, the cost of milk and butter is up, Speaker. The Premier knows his new minimum wage isn't enough for hardworking families to make ends meet. So my question is, will he do the right thing and return that $5,300 that he took out of the pockets of minimum wage workers?
Horwath went on to say that she is sick and tired of watching the Liberals and Conservatives using minimum wage workers as political pawns in the months leading up to an election. It is disgusting, it is cruel, and it continues to happen. It is a shameful tactic, and I'm sick of it, and I'm sure working people are sick of it too, she said. Both the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses and Ontario Chamber of Commerce took issue with the government's announcement, saying that many businesses across Ontario are still struggling to operate amid the COVID-19 pandemic, and that the pay bump would add to their overhead costs.
And now we go to Jessica Mvutu with a new business which is opening in Moss Park.
In the face of massive changes happening to our neighborhoods, where new development continues to alter the physical look of the city, the appearance of Ezras Market is like a small beacon of hope in a sea of depersonalized chain stores and glass and concrete high-rises. Ezras Market, located between Jarvis Street and Sherbourne Street at 237 Dundas Street East, is a small juice bar and fruit and vegetable store. Muna Al-Bardi and her brother, Mohammed Al-Bardi, are the co-owners, and they immigrated with their family to Canada from Sudan. Losing her job at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic gave Muna a time to pause and rethink what she wanted to do with her life.
We've opened this little place about a couple of weeks ago, and our motivation and aspirations were basically, we used to go to the market with our mom when we were young in Sudan, and at the end of every trip you'd get a nice little smoothie or juice. So me and my brother were kind of, we've always wanted to be entrepreneurs, and I think during the time of the pandemic I lost my job. And he had some money that he wanted to invest, and he would come over and I would always whip him up a tea or make him a really good smoothie if he wasn't feeling well. And he said, why don't we do something that would give us financial freedom, financial independence, and also something good, something for the community.
Muna and Mohammed El-Bardi's vision of a family-owned and operated food market goes beyond the essential provision of fresh and healthy food. The sister and brother want to encourage the spirit of entrepreneurship Black youth by showing how, even during a pandemic, one's vision does not have to suffer.
My brother wanted to do like a produce store to sell fresh produce and vegetables, and then I kind of incorporated the idea of a cafe and a juice bar. And I think another major reason we chose this location is because of all the shelters that are around. So we figured we're selling fresh produce and juice, non-pasteurized juice. It's gonna go bad. Who can we give it to? Also, our sister actually has a restaurant at the lock end of the street at 346 Dundas Street at Umi's Kitchen. And at the end of every night, they always give out the food to the homeless and also to the shelters nearby. And we thought that we can, kind of give them a hand in that. And that's why we picked this location in particular.
The Toronto downtown east side is an area of Toronto that is in the middle of a massive redevelopment and development. The Regent Park revitalization is in its final stages 4 and 5. St. Jamestown is also about to enter revitalization, as is Seton House, located on George Street in Moss Park. Add to that the ever-expanding development of the for-profit condominium market, and you have an extraordinary dynamic of change and upheaval. The new structures are quickly replacing all that was once familiar, local and small. The streetscape is being transformed into a place where only chain stores can afford the rent in the new buildings. And so, when we noticed a new business opening up in the middle of this, of course our interest was aroused. This is Jessica Mvutu signing up for RPTV.
And now we continue with Jabin Haque on the Indigenous Report of this week.
Thank you. Now I'll be presenting the Indigenous Report. Indigenous Report Pope Francis indicates willingness to visit Canada. In response to an invitation by the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops, a recent statement released by the Vatican announced that Pope Francis has indicated his willingness to visit Canada. Pope Francis is the leader of the Roman Catholic Church since 2013. He was the first pope from the Western Hemisphere, the first from South America. According to Rev. Raymond Poisson, President of the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops, the bishops of Canada have been engaged in meaningful discussions with Indigenous people, especially those affected by residential schools, who have shared stories about the suffering and challenges that they will continue to experience. We pray that Pope Francis' visits to Canada will be a significant milestone in the journey towards reconciliation and healing, said Rev. Raymond Poisson. Assembly of First Nations National Chief Rose Ann Archibald said in a media statement that she will welcome Pope Francis and expect him to deliver a long overdue apology to residential school survivors. While many members of the Indigenous community would welcome an apology from the Pope, National Chief Archibald reminds us that before there could be reconciliation, there must be truth. The Catholic Church must be accountable and acknowledge the responsibility for implementing and running these institutions of assimilation and genocide, said National Chief Rose Ann Archibald. The government and the Catholic institutions that ran the schools must release all documents and records and must provide compensation for survivors and give closure to families so they can know what happened to their children. From the 19th century until the last school closed in 1997, more than 150,000 Indigenous children were forced to attend state-funded Christian boarding schools in a campaign to assimilate them into Canadian society. Thousands of children died there of disease and other causes. Others never returned to their families. Nearly 3/4 of 130 residential schools were run by Roman Catholic missionary congregations, with others operated by the Presbyterian, Anglican, and the United Church of Canada.
And now for the report of the third session of the annual Deep Dive. The third session of the annual 2021 SDP Deep Dive took place over Zoom on the evening of Thursday, October 28, 2021. The Deep Dive is a unique consensus decision-making model designed by the SDP Planning Committee to determine how $500,000 of yearly city funding towards the Regent Park Social Development Plan will be spent. Any resident, organization, or group residing in or serving Regent Park could submit a proposal to the Deep Dive for any activity, so long as that activity is deemed to improve the lives of residents in Regent Park. Additionally, proposals should be aligned with one of the 4 priority areas of the SDP: communications, community building, economic development and employment, and safety. The previous deep dive session of October 21st ended with the facilitators asking each working group to review their project requests to see where cost savings could be made. At the start of that night's meeting, facilitator Walid Kogali reminded the group that as of last meeting, the group had over $900,000 in requests. The business of tonight's session began with all the working groups reporting back on their efforts. Teresa Todorova, the TCHC agency representative of the Safety Committee, began the reductions by offering cuts of $5,000 from the Youth Empowering Youth, reducing the budget request of $110,990 to $105,000. However, on closer inspection after the meeting, YEY's initial budget proposal to the deep dive was $94,490. So in fact, instead of decreasing their budget request, they actually increased it by $10,510. Teresa also announced reductions to the budgets of the Safety Training Certificate and Parents Conference workshops. According to Teresa, the budgets of the Training Certificate and Parents Conference workshop would be reduced to $78,000 from their request of $99,624, which amounted to savings of $21,624. However, similar to YEY, the initial submitted request for the training certificates and parents conference workshops was $54,300. So in fact, instead of reducing their projects, the Safety Committee was requesting a $23,700 increase. Teresa also announced that building leaders for change who submitted an initial budget request of $67,752 would reduce the duration of their project to 16 weeks, bringing their budget to $46,000 for a savings of $21,752. Following the Safety Committee Denise announced that the communications would defer the branding project to 2022 year, saving $80,000. Sam Wise indicated that the print shop proposal in the amount of $94,654 would be reduced to $79,116 for a saving of $15,538. Diana Mavundus, speaking on behalf of the Women's Health Social Circle Group, announced that their budget of $28,963 could be reduced to $24,475, saving $4,488. Pavitra announced that Women's Engagement Project in the amount of $57,057 could be reduced by $9,580, but had some questions related to trustee fees that had to be worked out. The group had succeeded in getting the proposal budgets to $768,316. However, when no further reductions were offered, Walid reviewed the city guidelines of the funding to the group with the intention of helping attendees who proposed the projects decide whether they were in a position to meet eligibility. One of the restrictions was that the city would not be funding for-profit groups. This was not a restriction last year. Ismail Afra from the Employment and Economic Committee indicated that they had a meeting with Oleg from the city and that Howla and Sam Wise will be incorporating their projects to not-for-profits to meet the eligibility. Following the review of guidelines, questions were asked about the high salary level of one of the projects requesting funding of an $80,000 staff position. A suggestion was made to have a salary limit, while opposing others defended the staffing request. Other suggestions that were offered was to defer youth projects to the upcoming Chris Billinger Youth Fund. This was strongly opposed due to the fact that the fund had not yet been released and the criteria was still in development. Another proposal was to let the city resolve the budget impasse by having the city determine the remaining projects. Several members were against this, as it disempowered the decision-making of the community. With time running out, the group decided that they would not be able to make final decisions. In the end, it was decided to schedule another deep dive session. The next deep dive session is scheduled for Wednesday, November 3rd.
And now we continue with events in Regent Park Community with Jabin Haque.
Now I'll be presenting events in Regent Park. If you are curious or interested in a career in the construction industry, BOLT is holding an event called Speak Out on November 16, 2021 at 5 p.m. This will be a free online session with a panel of industry professions who will provide information about the education and training requirements for specific jobs, as well as share their experiences and advice with participants. To register, click the link in the description. The Regent Park Neighborhood Association Community Benefits Coalition invites you to a Regent Park community-wide meeting on November 18th from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. With plans underway for the final phases 4 and 5 of redevelopment, it is important to have voices of the community come forward and speak on important matters and discussions that will impact everyone living in Regent Park. Topics of discussion will include a rezoning plan, which will be submitted to the city by TCHC and TIDL, the latest contractor in the redevelopment process, and which will look to approve greater density, higher towers, and possible new amenities like a library and a community-owned spaces. Another important topic to be discussed to the $26 million that will be secured for community benefits in this new redevelopment contract, and working to create a tri-party agreement in order to ensure residents are a full partner in making decisions for all allocations of these funds. If you are interested in being a part of this conversation and sharing your ideas for making Regent Park a better neighborhood for everyone, please join this and upcoming meetings. To register for this meeting or for more information, please contact rpna.info@gmail.com. Regent Park Conference Workshop Series presents the workshop Family Dynamics, which will be facilitated by Tish Binzagi on November 19 over Zoom, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. In this workshop, participants will discuss and dispel topics like the bad parent, develop strategies for strengthening parent-children relationships, among other themes in the family dynamics. There will be a Black community wellness check-in and vaccine clinic to check your blood pressure, find healthcare providers taking new patients, contact to mental health supporters, learn about diabetes, nutrition, early cancer detection, get a COVID-19 vaccine, flu shots on November 13. This will take place on Saturday, November 13 from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Wellesley Community Center, 495 Sherburne Street East, entrance by the parking lot. No OHIP is required. Native Earth Performing Arts, based out of the Daniel Spectrum building here in Regent Park, is excited to announce We Sagichak Begins to Dance is back. This will be the 34th year of this theater and performance-based annual festival, which focuses on featuring new development in process Indigenous works. This year, We Sagichak will be presented virtually once again and is free for all audiences. It will also feature multiple artists exploring land-based creation processes. You may experience a hysterical night of the Indigi Girl Cabaret, immersive dance films, and the culminations of the animic creators' work in their final year of residency. Please join the artists and witness their works in the process online with multidisciplinary creations from across Turtle Island. The festival runs from November 17 to 27, 2021. And once again, it is free for all. Here is Keith Barker, Native Earths Artist Director, to tell us a bit more.
Hi, my name is Keith Barker, and I'm the Artistic Director at Native Earth Performing Arts, which is Canada's oldest professional Indigenous theatre company in Canada. We are here at the Daniel Spectrum building, where we have our Aki Studio, which is a 120-seat black box theatre here in the heart of Regent Park. We have our upcoming Wasagichuk Begins to Dance Festival, which is celebrating its 34th year this year. It's an annual development festival where Indigenous artists get an opportunity to workshop and engage with Indigenous artists on new work and work in development. This year we have a young writers program called the Animiki program, which celebrates young writers, and it's a program that lasts 2 years, and this is this group this year is in their second year, and so we will be showcasing their work. We also have multiple discipline artists in terms of like dancers, Jeanette Kotowich, theater makers like PJ Prudat, partnerships with like night swimming and night swimming theater, which is here in the city, who are engaging with Indigenous artists, and we're just going to celebrate their work. And because of COVID and everything that happened, there are lots of artists that created online content. So we wanted to support that and also give them an opportunity to show the work to a new audience. And so the festival is November 17th to the 27th. It's all online. You can check it out at www.nativeearth.ca. All the tickets and all the information is there. You can check it out, and we hope to see you there.
And that was all the events in Regent Park. Hope to see you there.
And that's all for today's show. My name is Fred Alvarado, and my co-hosts are Murphy Brown, Jessica Mvutu, and Jabin Haque. And we'd like to thank our researchers who contribute to this newscast. And from our studios, Focus Media Arts Center, thank you for watching, and see you next week.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out all of our social media platforms. For more information, check out our website.